I want her to feel passion again. I want my wife to be enlivened by our relationship. I want to feel enlivened by our relationship. And I've heard that if I'm not fully embodied, which what does that mean? If I'm not fully embodied, then she can feel used. And hell, that's the last thing that I want. The last thing that I want as a good man is for her to feel like she's used in any way, right? That just hits me to my core. That's what Cynthia and I are going to talk about today is how does she feel used or when she feels used if you don't feel fully embodied to her? And talk about what that means. There's two main points that we're going to get into today by the end of this call. So stick to the end. We love hearing your questions. This is the C Note Show. Cynthia and I have been hosting this for years now. How to build a phenomenal long-term monogamous relationship, how to avoid big problems, how to solve issues as they arise, and how to renew into inspired trust and connection and closeness in marriage. Last time we spoke about the top 5 marriage blind spots that take men by surprise. So on YouTube, if you go back a video or two, you'll see that we hosted last week. Definitely check that out. And today, again, she feels used when you aren't fully embodied. So let's dig into it. Number one, the neediness of taking. When you go toward her for sex or intimacy or closeness, and she feels a neediness of taking energy from you, like you're trying to take something to make yourself feel better, versus going to her for sex, intimacy, closeness with the adventure of enlivening within you, that you're going to her to enliven the situation, to deepen into level 3, as we talk about. That you have adventure in your mind and in your heart and in your body. Those are two very, of course, different energies when you go to her, when you go toward her. And one of the things that Cynthia and I teach in our coaching, and we teach in our group coaching, in our classes and all, is that you have to be aware of what's inside of you, what you feel like, what your intentions are, where your mind is, where your emotions are when you go to your woman. Because why? Why is it so important that a man be aware of those things? And then let's get into the two different energies of taking versus enlivening when you go toward her for intimacy and closeness. So why is it important that a man know what he's feeling inside of himself before and when he goes toward his woman?
Yeah, I think even the question of that, I want to illuminate and honor how incredibly powerful on a very energetic level your masculine energy is. And so if the power and the force of the masculine is a more in the head, or more of an energy of this is a force to me move forward, something must happen, she's going to feel that as something very intense and kind of very penetrative into her, versus a something that their feminine really can move into and relax around, which is more of a illumination, a feeling of your heart, an invitation for her to emerge from whatever energetic state she's in.
Okay, so let's open that up. Okay, so you said the word penetrative in the first example of like a taking.
Yeah.
And aren't we supposed to be penetrative? Aren't we supposed to want to penetrate her? Isn't that what she wants? How do you mean there?
I think there's such a difference. Any of us, like the women's energy and men's energy, we have these natural ways of moving in the world. And when they're not really connected also to the heart, that can kind of throw off the opposite sex. So I would say even a woman who uh she might be asking for your energy, but if she's not feeling that in her heart, if she's not embodied with it, she will also come across as needy and even trying to take something from you to make herself feel better.
Okay, so pretend I have no idea what you're talking about. You said heart and coming to her and she doesn't feel right. So let's reduce it down to super simple. If I'm feeling bad about myself
Mm,
and I go to my woman to try to make myself feel better,
yeah.
if I'm trying to take happiness I'm trying to
Yeah.
source happiness through her. Why is that not good?
Yeah. So she'll feel the underlying demand of that. And it will feel like, and I've heard women actually use this phrase, that the masculine's reaching in and trying to take a piece of her out to give to himself.
Yeah, good, good. And so what does that feel? You talked about feeling his heart. What
Mhm.
does that mean?
So the difference between the reaching in and taking for a woman is when she feels that your need, your desire, your intention for her is embodied, does come from the fullness of your masculine soul. That's something that feels uh almost like there's a doorway been opened to her for her to relax around, and that you even want whatever is in her to come forth versus pinpointing, I need a specific energy right now, which collapses the feminine, puts her in overdrive, and can also be very protective. She can become very protective of herself, her body, her energy, and intimacy.
Yeah, so if it's like you as a man, if you're full and someone asks you if you want some dessert, you can make a choice, enjoy whether you want to taste that dessert or not. But if you're starving, if he's starving and you go to her as if she's going to feed you a meal that you need to survive, add some words around that for us.
Yes, so I was thinking and trying to really feel into what goes on for the feminine in this. And the feminine energy is so abundant. It so wants to like move with water, almost like layers of herself opening to you. When she feels like there's the expectation on how she shows up or how her energy is supposed to soothe or feed you, it really uh, clamps down on that. And it kills creativity, kills her energetic creativity, which is what keeps a woman continuing to want sex, continuing to be in her sexuality, continuing to grow in her sexuality, not only in the short run, but the long term.
That's really good. I'm going to go off of our topic for a second to ask you about this. In the forum the last couple of days, a man asked, um, she's in and this is my words, these weren't his words exactly, but she's in a lot of pain of something that's going on physically within her. And the way that she's approaching it quite often is to play victim.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know this couple. I don't know her at all. This is just roughly what I'm remembering of what he said because I want to ask you about it. So she's in a lot of pain. She's often playing victim. It's not, let's say, offering positive energy into the relationship. And maybe he's going to her, not with the sense of neediness, like he's hungry for her to feed him. He's maybe going to her with an adventure in his mind and his body. He's coming from a place of fullness, as you were saying, so
Mhm.
she can, quote, feel his heart. He's in joy already. He doesn't need her to offer him joy. He's not seeking that from her to take from her. He wants to go to give to the space and enliven the space with her. But she's often in this, well, either in physical pain or in a victim mode around that. So a story around that. And what's a woman's responsibility in this dynamic if a man does go to her with an energy of aliveness? And we're going to give some examples here in a few minutes, guys, but she's not in a place to meet him.
Mhm.
What would you say to that man and as around her quote responsibility in that dynamic?
Mhm. Well, first, I want to say that that's dynamic that she came to you in your relationship with already, because that's a almost a shutdown response in her body of feeling joy, as if joy and pleasure and adventure was not an okay thing to be, or it's a weak thing to be, which is probably something she gleaned really early on in life. And that being said, that it's a longer term pattern, that is something that she needs to lean into in terms of being brave enough to feel the adventure that you're offering. And she may have never have experienced this full-bodied masculinity before. You might be her very first invitation into that it's safe and exciting and good and powerful. But it is her job to rise up to the energy that you're offering, which is golden and good and what she's actually needing inside.
Yeah. And so all the way back to, it's so important that you know in your mind that you're doing your daily and weekly work for yourself, for your spiritual life, for your physical self, for your relationships. And it's important in that moment that if you feel like shit in that moment, don't go take that to your woman. Don't go take that to your lover, right? And because she's going to feel as if you're trying to take from her, as Cynthia was saying. So let's jump into number 2 today. And we have lots of examples I want to ask Cynthia about. Definitely the men that are here live, I want to hear your questions, right? So post in the chat or raise your hand in Zoom and let's get to you. But we're going to go into some picture examples right now. So number 2 is what Cynthia and I teach, we call kingly vision, meaning the idea that you have in your mind. What's the picture you have in your minds, the archetype of the man that you're being in this moment? And we're going to talk about this right now. When you go to her, are you a needy little boy? Are you starving for sex? And so you feel resentful when you go toward her, and that's what's in your mind, that's what's in your body? Or are you picturing yourself as a god, so to speak, or as a king, or as a warrior in this world, or as a man that feels joy through himself and serves the world in that way, and all these different archetypes? Let's talk about this now. So these are ways that you can feel fully embodied so she doesn't feel used. If you want to check out our stuff, we've got a book that's coming out later this year, greatmenmovemountains.com/new subscriber, and you get invites to these group calls and all of our upcoming stuff, right? So kingly vision in his mind, archetypes of approach. So if a man, Cynthia, feels like this inside of his mind, inside of his body, he's clear, he's calm, let's say he's in gratitude, let's use those words, and he moves towards her to bring adventure to the moment. What does that feel like in a woman's body?
It brings a sense of that initial wave of feeling trust in the current situation, trust in the energy of the moment, and trust in you. However, I say that lately because I know there's a lot of women that have built up a lot of layers and a lot of identity around, I'm not going to trust you, I'm not going to trust your sexuality, your advances to me. However, when you come to her with that energy, the only thing amiss is her own storm to work through and to have to feel and be accountable for, because you are bringing exactly what the masculine's gift is in this world, in sensual expression, in intimate connection and level 3 relationship.
So when he brings that, why is that unique to him? Can't she just go feel this another place? How is that unique that he can bring this masculine feeling of adventure to their space?
I mean, she can have masculine adventure at work. Women can seek their masculine adventure in their purpose and their drive. But I think it was even sometimes hard for me to verbalize how powerful your energy is because there's something so, the caliber, the breadth, the broadness that you bring with you and your energy and your body to her is a life-changing experience for the feminine. And it's something that she can't create all on her own, not to that degree. You really do bring the breadth and the energy of the sun to her. And it's really up to her to be able to feel that and feel the gift that it is.
Yeah, very well said. Let's jump into the next picture example here. So previously the man was more relaxed and serene. This one's more of he's in awe of nature and awe of the world. So again, when a man comes with these different energies inside of himself, he's breathing it into all of his body, right? This man is like welcoming the incredible vastness and beauty of the world. How does that affect a woman if he were to turn around and come toward her for intimacy or sex?
Well, automatically, even just looking at the picture, my whole heart is a flutter. So there is that powerful way that you can lead, even like energy to energy that doesn't even have words. Women in particular are so cued into the facial expressions and the energetic presence that you have. Uh, in your throat, in your heart, in your guts, that it can't help but be the invitation, the excitement for her. And if she again is not rising to that and touching in on that when you're offering, that's her pattern, not a lack on your part.
Yeah, thank you. Come on in. Thanks for raising your hand.
Yeah. Let me stick with the example that I used there. A lot of blame. I don't know if my situation was the one you shared earlier, but it sounded very close if it wasn't. So that's awesome. We can kind of piggyback off that. And just the her being in a place of seeing herself as a victim, probably not even knowing it. Um, I understand she's in a lot of pain. I don't believe I'm the cause of it, and I do my best to own whenever I am the cause of it. But I wasn't the cause of it this time, and she was taking it out on me and looking for ways to just turn the finger to me and saying, you did this wrong, you did that wrong. You always make this all about how it's my fault or something. And so my question initially came up in this scenario because I was like, okay, how do I show her in a way that praises her? Because I know that's how she'll grow, from my understanding, that this is not okay behavior, that this is not behavior I am a fan of.
Sure.
Does
Okay.
that make
So
sense?
yeah, so let's peel back the first layer on this. So you don't praise her while she's chastising you, right? There's no there's no like magic judo to she's being a nasty bitch right now and I'm gonna find a way to praise her. It's not that. You
Cool.
praise okay.
That's
So you praise her other times. Now, if in the moment she's being nasty, the best move is to try to get into humor first. I call it go high and then go low. So go humor first, up, see if she'll laugh with you, see if you can bring some enlivenment to the situation. And then going low means ask her to open something deeper for you. What is she feeling in that moment? What's the experience like for her? So she might say, "Well, yeah, you're just a raging asshole." You're like, "Okay, cool, maybe that's the case." And you kind of do a little shrug and a smile. Maybe that's the case. But really, what else is going on? Are you afraid of something? Are you afraid something's not going to happen? So you go high, then you go low. So a couple things there is you praise her a different time, and you
so.
go,
And let me
go ahead.
hop in real quick because I think I do a good job of that.
Okay,
Um,
so take us from there.
Usually making light of the mood and also being giving her room to open up. Most of the time this happens is not in person though, it's over text. And most of the time she offers a lot of resistance to opening up. And so if she doesn't want to open up, I'm not going to fight this. If you need space, take space. I'm happy to do that. So with that context in mind,
Okay, good. So there's a
um,
different prompt, and then I'll ask Cynthia about this here in a second. So there's a prompt of I notice fill in the blank. So I notice that you seem to be upset and in pain over the text that we saw earlier. And then I want. So I want you to share more of what's underneath that for me. I want you to bloom for me. I want you to come over and put your head on my shoulder and share the sadness with me. Are you doing something like that when you see her in person? You're not trying to do this over text. You're doing this in person.
well, most of the time I don't even get that far. In the moment, I'm like, kind of similar to what you said. I'm noticing it sounds like you're in pain. I'd like to know what's on your mind or whatever, something similar. And then usually she'll either not open up or she'll spit out a whole lot of more on the surface crap. Or she won't like be willing to, because sometimes I'll be like, hey, like, well, this is something that sounds important. Let's talk about it in person. I'm happy to make some time where it's not just time, it's me, physical presence. So a lot of
Okay.
that stuff gets rejected too.
Okay, good. So I'll press pause and yeah, thank you. We'll press pause and we'll go to Cynthia and we'll go on to another man too. Thank you. Okay. So he's trying all these things that he's learning, right? It seems important. I care about you. When we get in person, let's open. And she's doubling down on being, nasty, accusative, victim. What would you say is his responsibility there? What's her responsibility? What would you say in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's again, this speaks to me of a pattern that is in her from a long time ago that's not necessarily new to your situation. And there are a lot of women who their immediate response to the power of a masculine presence who's really showing up for her to shut down because in the past she never felt that or it she wasn't really held in in that energy, even if it was invited. And it's almost like a teenage rebellion at this point, and a stomping her feet, which to me speaks a little bit more to needing some more solid boundaries, more solid grounding of, hey, this is part of our relationship. This is part of a relationship I'm going to be in, of that we talk through these things that you open to me.
Yeah. And this is what I want. This is what I want, is for you to open underneath that. So I'm hearing that this seems to be all my fault, but I know that there's more to it than this. And I want you to open that more to me. What else would you say there? Anything else?
Yeah. And I don't know what type of pain that she's dealing with a lot. And I have so much empathy for, physical pain or emotional pain that is constant. And there is an expectation that she does open to you through that. There is an expectation in relationship that this is how the feminine works with you when you're offering the masculine frame. And she might not understand it yet, but that's incredibly important, not only for the relationship, for the vision that you might offer about the relationship, but even to what she's going through in her own body.
Yeah. So if you've prepared yourself every day, every week, you're doing your practices, you feel joy, you feel gratitude in your body, you go to her and you use these skills to invite her and then lovingly insist that she open to you, and she still doesn't want to do any of those things, and she's still pointing and spitting and blaming you, you're not going to want to be around her. So that's a time when you say, we'll come back and we'll try this again. And if, as you're walking away or as if you're taking space, she's still pointing and spitting and yelling and all this, it's only pushing you away more. So you're not going to give in and try to capitulate and apologize if she's just blaming. You still hold to the vision of what you want in relationship. And we could be more specific in our group calls and our membership calls and our one-on-one coaching. We can get more into specifics there if you want. Yeah, please come on in.
Thanks. My question is, like, the first picture that you put up there, Jeff. Like, I looked at that picture and chuckled a little bit. Like, my wife was pissed off when I did that, and she brought it back on me. Like, there was a time when you just came home and just watched TV or something, and it was like, because I was fucking exhausted by working all day. And so I guess the question from that comes of, like, is there ever a time that it's okay to relax and like I don't know, like I don't want to say vent, but like sort of like just fucking lean on your wife a little bit? I mean, isn't that what marriage is? And not, this is all retrospective for me, but also future, whatever I do in the future. I mean, it's
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a great question. I thought about this before we hit go today, which is the exception is my parents passed away. There was a tragedy in our life. I'm exhausted from 14 hours at work. And so I'm not in my top form as a man. Okay, that's an exception. But the rule is, if I'm going to be in the space of my lover, I'm not going to want to just plop down on the couch and feel exhausted and pissed off about work while she's 10 feet away doing something else, or, I'm ignoring her. So sure, yes. Is there a time when you can feel sad or destroyed within yourself or want to lean on your partner? Yes, of course, absolutely. But that's more of the exception. So for instance, I would challenge you. You and I know each other pretty well. So if you're coming home from work and I'm just tired, bitch, leave me alone. I'm just tired from work. No, that's not okay. But if your dog just got run over 5 minutes ago, yeah, of course you're going to be in a not good spot. What else would you add? By the way, it's the same for her. This is what Cynthia and I believe. This is something I teach and practice ourselves, is that she also shouldn't just be coming in her sloppy pajamas of 3 days and, bitch about the world and put no effort into the loving space between the two of you either. That's an exception. So what would you say? What would you say about that piece?
Yeah. And it's so amazing when I hear men reference that I need to just relax and almost be in a state of nothingness. Like you were throwing the spear all day long. And then part of the energy is just to be in stillness, nothingness, not having to be doing. And that's actually something so women in that space, they abhor emptiness, because to them, in their own chemistry, that's nothing. They don't want emptiness, they want fullness. And so even there's a little teaching of the feminine in your life, that it's okay in moments where you're in stillness. It's okay. Everything is okay. And we're talking about embodiment today. So even if that's in the same space with her, you're embodying or even sharing like everything's okay, or taking that space that you so well deserve in other places, and just understanding that instinctually, um, she doesn't want to feel nothingness. So she'll try to fill you up so she doesn't feel the same way.
Yeah, yeah. And if you want to do nothing and feel nothing, go tell her, talking to you and every man, tell her, I need alone time. I'm exhausted. I'm gonna go take an hour, 2 hours, whatever it may be, and I'll see you at 7 o'clock. And go take alone time away from her. Go fucking crash in your man cave away from her. Yeah. Yeah, it's good stuff. I want to jump over to a couple of other pictures real quick. So this picture, so if this man just got home from work and he's exhausted, and maybe he's depressed about life, I could just guess from his face. Maybe he's worried about his future, maybe he's worried about finances. And so if he's sitting there like this, you were saying the natural inclination of the feminist is to fill him up.
Or
But
to want fullness,
to
or
want
to
him.
feel like something's wrong. Yes.
So how is him just sitting there like this feel like he's wanting to take something from her? Let's say she's 5 feet away, 10 feet away. He's not trying to engage with her,
Mm-hmm.
but to her, he is engaging with her. Is that true? Is that fair?
Yes, because if she's painting you as if you were another woman, a woman sitting there would be having expectations. The stillness would mean that something was wrong, or even that, you know, there was anger toward her. And because this feels like tension to her, she's going to feel an inherent uh, expectation in it. And that expectation can look like fawning, it can look like freezing, or it can look like fighting you when you're in that space.
So this has an inherent expectation. Most guys didn't. I didn't know that. Just being in her space, being like this, she is affected by however you feel.
Yeah, and these are one of the things that delight me, because men and women are so different. And then I sometimes I just ache in talking about it, because you are allowed that space. But if she doesn't understand what that means, or you're not able to bring her embodied presence in other points of life, it will be a point of high anxiety for her.
Yeah, thank you. Come on in, please.
Hey guys, great topic. I was wondering how much does attachment theory come into play when it comes to this? So like perhaps let's say there's a woman who has avoidantly attached, and there's I feel like there maybe is a barometer of how this statement that Cynthia said about them feeling like we're taking part of their heart out, or what was that soundbite? I can't remember exactly verbatim, but it was something like that, and that was like kind of shocking to hear that. And I'm like, based on someone's attachment style, would that affect when does that feeling like their heart is being taken kick in? You know what I mean? What is the tolerance level for a man to be able to come in and share or give in? Because one of the other guys was saying, I mean, you want to share part of your life with your woman, but how much to share, and when how much do we need to learn about them before we fully do give in vulnerably and fully, and kind of gauging all of that feels like very complicated and complex, and you know what I mean?
Yeah. So yes, and it's a very difficult question, but let's break it into something simple. So let's say there's two variables. Let's say her attachment style and my attachment style. Okay. And so I'm assuming if she's more avoidant, because that's your question. And then part of your question was, when can I fully open myself vulnerably to her? Okay. Maybe never. Let's just start there. Maybe never, because I don't know what fully vulnerable with her means exactly, but let's assume it's like fully vulnerable can often mean I'm sharing all my deepest anxieties, which is not actually lover energy. We've talked about this other topic for another call, right? But if I go to her and say, like, I'm worried about paying the bills and I really kind of hate my job and blah, blah drama from work that I don't know what to do with. And, I got 3 flat tires and my dog just died and it's a country song all of a sudden, she's going to feel like she has to fix all that shit. And now she's burdened with all of that. She's not your therapist. She's not your mother, right? So how would you refine your question a bit? And then I'll ask Cynthia, please. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to, based on learning more about her and where she's at energetically, attachment style, you know, I guess how much do we have to be clued into where she's at before we know when to share, how to share, what to share, or if at all, like you're saying, maybe never, maybe you don't always go there. I guess I'm just kind of confused on how to approach that.
So, okay, I'll ask that. It's funny. I'm in the middle of reading the War of Art, or the Art of War by Lao Tzu, right? And he says something along the lines of, if you know yourself but you don't know your enemy, you will lose. And,
yes.
Okay, so not that she's your enemy, but the way you're talking about this, it's like, how deeply and how well do I need to know my woman? Pretty fucking well. And as you're leaning in, you don't just throw like the football down the field 40 yards. You're going to do a running play, you're going to do a play action play, you're going to throw the ball 5 yards down the field, and you're going to see what's going on with her. Or you're going to watch, what does her affect look like? How open is she? How shallow or deep is her breath? So take us from there when you say, so what if a man is just oblivious to a woman's current mood or her attachment, and he just starts to be vulnerable? Where's the danger there?
Yes, I hear this actually from a lot of women who will share, I wish my partner, my husband, was more, tuned in to where I was at in any one moment, because she'll feel again like there's an expectation of her, or something's needed from her when she had in her mind nothing to give. A couple of things hit me so deeply is when dealing with an avoidant woman, and it's energetically, it's kind of like the hands in your face. So it's not your fault that was hard to pick up on where she's at all. It's someone actively going, don't look, don't look. And then, this word embodiment today, I even struggle with this myself. Sometimes it feels like being embodied is a vulnerable place to be. And there's the vulnerability of sharing verbally experience, but there's also the being in one's body that has nothing to do with what someone's determining or thinking about you. It's yours and yours alone. And it doesn't make you vulnerable. But our world, our society, our culture has really raised us to think it does.
Yeah, us knowing quite a bit of your story, right? So if you're in a softer place inside of yourself, I'm adding to what Cynthia said. If you're in a softer place and you go to your woman and she's in a ragged, jagged, aggressive place, she could slam you because she feels you're being weak when really you're not. It's her own perfectionism or her own fear that's like projecting onto you, is what we understand of your situation and things. Is that fair to say?
Yes. Yeah. And that feels really important to say, not only in understanding the feminine and how she responds to softness or wanting to give softness, but I feel so much frustration that you having softness in your heart would feel like something that needed to be attacked, because really softness and heart is expansion and openness. That's like redwood tree energy that she might throw darts at, but has nothing to do with her, and is not a cause and effect.
Yeah. Thank you. Please come in. We only have a couple more minutes today, guys. Please.
You have this idea of like, going high and then going low, but I think sometimes you just got to go away.
Yeah. If she's continuing to throw darts, as Cynthia was just saying, you take space. If that's not working for you, you take space.
Anyway.
Yeah, good. That's good. Yeah, you wanted to have a follow-up question, please?
Yeah, just real quick. You were answering that other gentleman's question, and you said that if you feel like you can't pay the bills and you can't do this and you can't do that, you don't want to express that because it will overburden her. So what do you do to be honest without saying, honestly, I feel overwhelmed right now, but you don't want to mention that because you don't want to burden her, but you also, I wouldn't want to be dishonest personally and lie that I'm not, experiencing some conflict.
Yeah,
even if I trusted myself.
that's a great question. And that's a topic. So I'll answer it quickly. And that's a topic for another time as well. So we teach you want to share a scar, not an open bleeding wound. So if you're feeling uncentered, spinning in your own self, that's an open bleeding wound. And you don't want to take that to your lover. Okay? If you made sense of it, like, I'm really, if you can have a little smile on your face and breathe calmly and your pulse, your heart rate is low, then it's more of a scar. Meaning, if, I'm really not enjoying my line of work, uh, I'm going to look for other ways to grow into another phase of my career. I'm going to look into other skills. And then you actually go do that over the next 2 months, 6 months, 2 years. That's you following through on something. If you feel terrible and she says, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" You could say, "Come here and give me a hug. I had a rough day. And then I need to go take alone time." And during your 2 hours of alone time, you journal, you email, me, you post in the forum, you pray, you go for a walk outside, you speak into the clouds. And these are all things that I do, by the way. So these are all fantastic ways that you can deal with that. So before we get off the call today, put into the chat, but as a husband, you are and you want to be tuned in. But what happens when our wife doesn't want to share her feelings, or when where she is anymore? So Cynthia, can I force her? How can I force her? How can I ask a magic question? I'm being a little facetious, but men ask me all the time, if there was one thing that I could say, is there a magic spell, Harry Potter wise, that I could say? So what happens if she doesn't want to share her feelings?
Yeah. And I'm so sorry that she would not take the opportunity to be in her feminine expression with you, because there's plenty of women in the world who are not offered that, who are craving that. If she doesn't want to, it's a more of a masculine place. So if you and all your power as a man have kind of an expectation, like, I just want to find the secret key to open her, she'll feel that as masculine prodding into her, and she'll kind of meet it in return. Versus when we really want the feminine to open it, it's an allowance and an evolution in her that might take a really long time, and a lot of her just feeling your invitation moment, next month. That's the key to opening the feminine. And I can only imagine that that's frustrating, because there's a desire for it to happen now.
Right. I mean, when you're hunting, you can't force the animal to be prepared for you. Yeah. It's a matter of skill and practice and patience. And sometimes the timing's not going to be right. But ultimately, to use the same metaphor, if you're hunting in a place with your woman where she's never opening to you, you'll offer that masculine presence less often. And if she doesn't miss it, then what are we talking about here? Then is there really any kind of relationship that she wants with you if she doesn't want your masculine attention and your presence and your feelings of adventure?
Yeah.
Good stuff. We love your questions. There was a couple other in the chat that we didn't get to. We will see you next week. Reach out to us directly if you like. greatmenmovemountains.com. Appreciate you guys. Thanks, Cynthia. See you guys next time.